Your call is important to us. Please hold the line.
All operators are busy at the moment. We apologize for the wait and will answer you shortly. Our operators are busy at the moment. Your call is being transferred. Thank you for calling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Hauntline live stream. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Hauntline. I'm Jonathan, your host. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the first haunt event of 2024, which is already here in March. What the hell? I know. But Scream Break opens next weekend at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and we've got all the details for you. We're going to cover what to expect this season and also what we thought about its first year last year, 2023. But I can't do it alone, so please welcome to the show my buddy Dustin. Welcome, my friend. How you doing, dude?
Dude, what is up, man? First of all, hardest opening of anything, man. That is ridiculous. I've seen many recognizable faces, but that goes way too hard, man.
I know, it's very dramatic, but I had to go hard, man. I just had to go for it. But thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm doing good, bro.
Shout out to everyone tuning in live. I see you all. Aiden, welcome back. Always a pleasure to see you. Larissa, welcome back as well. We got Ariana also in the chat. Nexus Fuel wants to know if Peaches will be there. We'll see. We're going to have, hopefully, a lot of returning faces to Scream Break. The one face that I know we won't get, unfortunately, is Innocence Willoughby, who retired their character last season at Fright Fest. Going to be such a loss, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. We're going to have a lot more to do and see this year because Scream Break is back. I didn't think I'd be able to say that. We'll get into why in a second here, but Scream Break is back. Now, in case y'all don't know, you might have seen Dustin, or he might have seen you, better yet, in the shadows over at Ghost Town. Dustin, are you all recovered, dude? How you feeling, man?
I am recovered as I can be. Yeah, man, I'm good. I feel great. You know, last year was a huge year. It was, I think it was more nights than I've ever worked in my life. So definitely need the off season. But nah, man, it was a great year and I feel good right now. You know, I feel pretty good. Minus a couple things here and there. I'm still kind of recovering, but you know.
It looks like Bronx says that you're not.
Oh yeah, no, he knows. He knows.
Now, real quick, dude, tell us a little bit about your character because you got the opportunity to scare once again in Ghost Town as part of the 50th haunt. Tell us about your character and how that went for you, man.
Yeah, man. So, this past year I was the cat on Ghost Town. I was one of 3 cats. I was the judge cat and had the big old ears. And to be honest with you, man, it was the most fun. I've worked Knott's for a pretty long time, and this is probably the most fun I've had of any year.
Nice.
There's just the vibes are right, you know, just that the guests were so excited. I got to do buffet for the first time, which if you've never done buffet as a guest where you get to eat and do the whole thing and, you know, hang out with the monsters, it's a lot of fun as a guest, bro. As a monster, it is great. It is the most fun I've ever had as a monster. Just walk around talking to people, but yeah, man, I loved it, and it's kind of unfortunate. It's like a one and done thing for me, but that cat character was fun.
Yeah, man, it's so funny. You and then so many of the other Ghost Town characters. All of a sudden, y'all picked up a smoking habit, man. It was like. I think it wasn't Fog and Spog Alley. It was just all of you guys just smoking in Fog Alley.
Dude, I don't know why I somehow ended up with like 3 or 4 fake cigarettes throughout the season. And Yeah, it got kind of ridiculous, but it looked very judgmental. Like if you just walk up to somebody and you kind of hit them with it and then you put it back and walk away. Just a cat smoking. I don't know why, but that just fits the theme. We're all about theming and backstories at Not Scary Farm in a Ghost Town. So my cat smokes.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you had a great time, man. I mean, you and everybody else in that zone really brought the energy and freaking killed it out there, man. It was so fun.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it was a good time. But with that in mind, I mean, I know that you have worked haunt a lot of seasons out of your life that maybe took you out of going to haunt events a lot because obviously you're working. But last season we had the opportunity. I had a blast going to Scream Break with you, dude. It was so much fun. And we're gonna be out there for opening weekend as well.
Yeah, we are,
dude. What is the experience like for you as a performer going to these events, especially now that you're kind of in retirement, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, I think any performer will tell you it's really hard to turn that part off of your brain. You're constantly, for me anyway, like walking around the events, I catch myself finding like, oh, there's a line, like, like I could hit that if I was sitting right now or whatever. But when you truly kind of remove yourself from it, I start to gain an appreciation for the set design and the work that a lot of the people behind the scenes put in. Because I know the wear and tear that those mazes go through every night. And so I start to kind of gather an appreciation for that. But then I think moreover than that, it's seeing the performers and really gathering like the energy they're putting out. You can tell, is it a good night tonight? Is it an off night? You can feel that as a performer. So yeah, it's fun. But I will say I'm probably one of the most awkward people to interact with as a guest because I don't know how to be a guest and interact with monsters. Like I'm not sure how to do that. I'm learning. I'm getting better at it. But that's something I'm trying to work on.
Nice, dude. Well, let's get right into it. We're going to talk Scream Break this entire episode for the most part. So yeah, like I said, Dustin and we had the opportunity to visit it last season. Truly a very unique event. I mean, I remember when they first announced it, my mind was blown because I was like, whoa, they're really doing a haunt event in March, April. Like they're really doing it right out the gate. And honestly, I didn't think it was going to return. So when they announced it for this season, my mind was blown again because I was like, damn, okay, here we go. But what's fun too is that I think you may see some familiar faces from Knott's performing at Scream Break. It seems to kind of it's getting some traction, I feel like, within the community of people being like, okay, we're going to scare in March. So I guess my question is, Dustin, season 3, we're going to see you out there at Scream Break, bro? What you doing?
Oh, man. That's a far drive, first of all. Valencia is very far. You know what, man? I've always, back in like my old days, I'm like, nah, man, you couldn't pay me to work at another park. But like, honestly, I would love to kind of feel the vibes of other areas. Like how does everyone else do it? You know what I mean? Like I didn't get a chance to do Queen Mary, but like you got Horror Nights, you got Six Flags. Like I'm curious kind of how is it different? How is it the same? Because to be fair, we have a lot of people at Knott's that have kind of transferred over from Horror Nights or from Six Flags, Queen Mary, whatever. So to do the reverse would be great, but no, you're not going to see a smoking cat at Six Flags anytime soon. So.
Well, they're lost, friend. They're lost. All right, let's go into what you can expect from this year at Scream Break. Here's a peek at the map. So first of all, this event is taking place Fridays and Saturdays, March 22nd through April 13th from 9 p.m. to midnight. Although you could actually enter the event as early as 7:30 p.m., but the mazes themselves won't open till 9 p.m. And Nexus, we got a great question. Thanks for the donation, brother. Very generous. So how is it compared to something like HHN? I mean, we'll definitely get into it. We'll get into it in a second because we're going to break down the scare zones. We're going to break down the mazes. But just with any haunt event, I always like to say that, it's very different. Each haunt event has its own soul, has its own way of doing things, right? So it's definitely very different from HHN. But we'll get deeper into that in a second here. So hang on tight, Nexus. We're almost there. Don't worry. So admission is only $40, and that includes parking. So that alone, to me, is like already kind of like well, this is interesting, right? Like that. I mean, it's cheaper than any haunt event, really. I guess maybe outside of LA Haunted Hayride, but that's its own little thing. So now there's 2 haunted houses this season. We've got Condemned House Party, which is a rebranding of a house they've had there for a couple of seasons now. And in fact, if you went to Fright Fest last season, not Scream Break, but Fright Fest itself, they did bring back Condemned for this event. I'm sorry, House Party, Condemned House Party for Fright Fest. So you got a sneak peek of it. But it's basically a house party inside of the Condemned maze. And I actually, we'll get into it deeper in a second, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. And then adding to the lineup this season is Saw.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the IP that they announced for last season's Fright Fest, and it's coming back for Scream Break, which is pretty big to me. Also interesting that it's Saw and not The Conjuring of the two. That's very interesting to me. So there's those are the 2 houses that are coming to the event. We also have 3 scare zones. I'll go back to the map in a second here. 3 scare zones. We've got Demon's Row. We've got Grave, which is a rave in a grave. And they've got Bloodborne Hollow. There is also, new for this year, a nightly slider show at 11 p.m. And if you've never seen a Six Flags slider show, now's your chance because they are really, really fun. They also have a haunted happy hour from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So if you get there early, you're going to get real happy.
Oh, no.
2 DJs and 6 coasters open for you to enjoy. If that's your thing, this is actually a really great time to go on those coasters because last season, Scream Break was awfully quiet. I mean, we went on the media night, and even that was awfully quiet. So my biggest plus, I mean, I skipped over this in the beginning. Apologies, but our goal tonight is to answer the question: is Scream Break worth a visit? So in my eye, immediately the first point goes to it being pretty quiet as an event. That means that the waits for the mazes are pretty short. Mm-hmm. I don't think we waited more than 5 minutes. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin. I don't think we waited more than 5 minutes for anything.
Yeah, no.
And I could only imagine that translates to the attractions as well. So that to me is already a point. But that's all you can expect for this year at Scream Break at Six Flags Magic Mountain. So now let's talk about last year, Dustin.
Yeah.
Let's get into it here. So let's start with the mazes. Last season, there was 2 mazes. Condemned House Party, it was the first year of that. And then also Vault 666 Initiation. Now, this was your first experience going through the Fright Fest mazes ever, right, Dust?
Yeah, I've never been.
Dust. I've never called you Dust before. Dustin.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, no, I've never been to Fright Fest before. So this was my first experience.
And what'd you think of it, overall, like the design of them, the scare factor? How would you rate them in your mind?
What's crazy is I didn't really know what to expect. Sure. But there were a couple of things that stood out and like really kind of caught me by surprise. And I had mentioned this to you, but it was again kind of like the little technical things. But the first thing that really stood out to me that I didn't know Six Flags was like that. Their makeup is like spot on. It is incredible.
Yes.
I mean, it's seamless. And I didn't, it's one thing to nail that in September and October, and you got, maybe your heavy hitters of makeup artists and you got all this stuff going on, but like to hit that in March and have the makeup look as good as it did, that blew me away. I didn't know it was, that good.
Right.
That was my first thing that kind of drew me in, like, oh, okay, like this is gonna be fun, this is gonna be cool. But yeah, it was that, and then it was just how big the park is. Just so many hills. Like it's so far. And like we walked very, very far, I'm glad you have the map, because I was going to bring up something I just noticed about the maze setup. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with last year, but regardless, yeah, the size of the park was a little shocking to me. Sure. I forgot how big it is.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And by the way, there's a vlog that we did of that night in 2023. we literally got lost for, I think it was what, an hour?
Dude, we walked past all of the activities looking for more activities, and it was just like dark, like backstage. Yeah, we had to turn around.
There were so many times where I'm walking and I'm like, where the, because mind you, I've been to Fright Fest before. I've been to Six Flags before, but it's not an event that I go to often. Like, obviously, I go to Scary Farm all the damn time. I go to Horror Nights quite often too, so I'm very familiar with those layouts. But we're walking through Fright Fest and I'm like, don't worry, guys. We're going to hit those mazes anytime now.
We were in the parking lot.
Basically, we went literally all the way to the back of the event. And then I was like, okay, I think we might have skipped the mazes.
Yeah.
I'm sure we would have run into them at some point by now. But little did I know, they're like right by the entrance. I know that now. So we're not going to make the same mistake this season. I don't think. I hope not.
Exactly. Well, and that's a question I have. So on the map, it looks like now is one of the mazes way off in the back now? Like,
yes.
Do they kind of spread them out?
Yeah. So that's the funny thing about this whole situation here is that Saw is literally the last house on the left. It's literally the last house, actually on the right, that you're gonna hit when you go to Fright Fest. It's literally toward the back of the park. So it was very interesting for them to choose that location, especially considering that The Conjuring was technically closer than Saw is, but they've decided to make it so that you walk all the way to the end of the park, and I guess they give you something to do, so that's nice at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is in fact the last item that you're going to hit on that map is the Saw maze. Very interesting. Very interesting. Walker Chronicles. This is kind of cool. Both mazes exceeded our expectations. The scare actors were great. Yeah, to your point, Dustin, I mean, they bring it, dude. We were out there having a good time chatting it up with Kenny Kegerton before we went into the house party.
Yeah. Kenny was the dude, man. I was going to get into that in a sec about the scare actors, but yeah, man, that's a big one for me.
For sure. Carolyn, however, the Saw X house wasn't very scary at all. It was cool to see, but not scary. I'll definitely agree with you to an extent. I think, and to answer your question, Nexus Fuel from earlier, the one thing that the Fright Fest houses don't have are like trigger scares, like in HHN. Mind you, Knott's for the most part doesn't do them either. There's a couple of moments that have trigger scares inside the mazes, but that was one of the biggest differences to me. And also, when we went last season, it did seem like Saw was almost not 100% complete because we did go on the first night that they had opened that. So allegedly, they're adding more to Saw for Scream Break. So I'm very excited to check it out. Dustin, what's your familiarity with the Saw franchise, man? Are you a fan of that at all?
Dude, honestly, I love Saw. I love the franchise.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, the first several, what are like 15 movies now?
Yeah.
The first like couple were just so, revolutionary in a sense.
Sure.
So yeah, man, I'm a huge fan.
Cool, man. Well, I'm excited to see what you think about this one. A couple of things that were missing for me when we went through it last season in Fright Fest, they didn't really have the soundtrack playing at all, which I think that's like such a key element. Like when you hear the Saw theme, you're like, I know that. It's so recognizable. It's so part of the experience. So they didn't have it in the house. So I'm hoping that they add that to it this time. But all in all, I thought, it was pretty all right for what it was, man. Again, Six Flags does things a little differently than Knott's than Horror Nights does, but not bad at all.
adding more rooms, it sounds like completing it is it's going to be done, I think is what they mean. So we'll see.
Shout out to Nico, Entertainment Connection. Saw should be very, very interesting this go around. Will we be seeing new traps? Oh, maybe. Or will it just be a more completed maze from what we experienced? That's a great question, dude, because that's another thing that I noticed last season with Saw is that a lot of the houses did feel, a lot of the rooms did feel a little emptier. And I think the fact that they were bigger rooms also made it seem like they were pretty empty. But to your point, Nico, I do hope that we do see some more traps, some more tricks in there. we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Any final thoughts on the mazes, Dustin, before we move on?
Nah, man, I'm just excited. I'm excited. And I think someone had mentioned it in the comments, but moving the mazes kind of separate from each other, I think that's a smart move, because once you figure out that the mazes are all in the front of the park, you have no reason to go to the back, but you're missing some really good scare zones back there.
Sure.
And so I think it makes a lot of sense to do that to kind of get the flow of traffic back there. I think overall being able to go kind of everywhere and have a reason to go everywhere, I think is crucial. They probably learned that last year.
Yeah, great point. And I mean, excellent segue. We're going to talk about the scare zones now. Last year, damn, I should have looked this up before we went on air, but I want to say they did have one more technically scare zone last season, because like this year they have the 3. Demon's Row, that was definitely there last season because that's by Condemned.
Right.
Grave, which was definitely there last season.
That was there.
Yeah. Bloodborne. Maybe it was just the 3. I'm getting my wires crossed. I can't remember if they had one where they have like their little Looney Tunes land. It was like circus themed. I think that might have been Fright Fest though.
Yeah, I don't remember that from last year. I think it was these 3.
Okay, cool. So what are your thoughts on the scare zones? Because I know in terms of scare zones, they do them very differently than Knott's, and they also do them very differently than Horror Nights. So yeah, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, well, it was my first experience kind of being in those scare zones. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. You can kind of feel like when you enter the zone, you feel like the theming just changing overall. The lighting and everything else, the setup was great, but I do just want to shout out and point out that the performers were on their game the night that we went. And I can't tell you, I mean, we mentioned, it was a little bit slow and everything, right? I can't tell you how hard it is as a scare actor, as a performer, to get up for those Wednesday nights or for those like small crowds. It's tricky because the scares are limited and you don't have a lot to interact with. But man, I'll tell you, they were hitting everything. Like they're firing on all cylinders and they were keeping themselves entertained, which is crucial.
Sure.
And that was the thing I really noticed. And I think that's something that Knott's kind of gets high-fived for a lot, is like how we're able to sort of banter and work off of each other so well. And a lot of that just has to come with like experience and things like that. But like, I felt like they did, especially in the, is it Demon Row? Is that right?
Demon's Row. Yeah.
They were really working off each other. They had their backstories down like perfectly, and the way they were kind of interacting and bringing everyone together and into it, you got to give it up to them, man. They really knocked it out. It really impressed me.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's very consistent for me anytime that I go to Fright Fest, is the interactions with the characters in the scare zones. A lot of them definitely go out of their way to like just hang around people and like, give out backstory. Again, not the other parks don't do it. I mean, Horror Nights, they can't because they literally can't talk. Knott's does it a lot too, but Fright Fest, to your point, Dustin, I mean, they don't have a ton to work with out there, but what they do have is amazing performers, and truly just giving it their all. And especially for this event, I mean, it makes you want to party, man.
Yeah, dude. It really does. They gave it all, man, and I'm excited to see how it goes, because I don't think anyone knew what to expect last year either. It was just like, oh, it's Halloween in March, like exciting. This is the second year around, and like they knew what it was like last year. I'm curious, are they going to go even harder? Like, what is it going to be?
Yeah. Aiden, great point here. The scare zones and scare actors for this are going to be so good. I can't wait. I can't wait either. I can't wait to see what they do. Ariana, great point as well. The scare actors really leaned into the party, spring bake vibes. Truly. I loved seeing a bunch of them walk around with like fake cocktails and just like whistles in their mouths, just like raving. The clowns especially, man, over in Grave, they were going hard, man. I mean, you can speak to it as a performer, Dustin, but could you imagine just kind of dancing every set? Like, how tired would you be?
I'd be exhausted, man. There's absolutely no way. It's an impossible task. So yeah, I will congratulate them on that fantastic performance.
And then speaking of which, the entertainment last year, I mean, we had the 2 DJs for sure. One by the main 2 mazes, and then the other one in Grave. This year, they're adding the element of the slider show, which I think is a very welcome element indeed.
Exciting.
Yeah, what did you think about the entertainment they offered last season, man? I mean, I know it's just DJs, but overall, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited for the slideshow this year because last year the entertainment felt like it was sort of there just to kind of accompany what was already happening. Like
Sure.
the DJs were great, but like they were definitely kind of like a little bit of background noise to like everything else that was going on. And so I think they had an opportunity to really offer something to kind of do in between mazes. Cause again, it's 2 mazes or whatever, right? Like once you're done, you're done. Like you're just eating and you're drinking. So you want to have something to watch or to do. So I'm glad they're taking an opportunity to kind of shine a spotlight on something and get people excited about, you know, a timed event happening throughout the night.
Sure. Absolutely. Jacqueline, with the $1 million question here, this is kind of interesting. Do you guys think there will be no new surprises now that they are connected with Cedar Fair? Now, Dustin, have you heard about this? Have you been keeping up with all that?
Legally, I can't talk about it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I heard about it. Not the berry flags is the joke that we go with. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to affect anything. If it will affect anything, is it something that's logistical or is it going to affect creativity? We don't know, you know. But I'm really excited to see what happens. I truly, it's the first time I truly like just don't know what can happen from that merge.
Yeah, it's pretty wild news, honestly. I remember when the story first broke. I mean, even when I worked there back in the day, this is like back in 2016, I think, 2015, there was already rumblings about like, oh, Six Flags may buy Cedar Fair, Six Flags may merge with not whatever, right? So to see it actually happen, pretty wild. I think maybe the only change that we'll see is perhaps getting some Knott's mazes shipped over to Six Flags. It's kind of interesting to me, though, that Vault 666 is not returning for Scream Break. It's also interesting to me that The Conjuring is not returning for Scream Break. I can see them saving The Conjuring for Fright Fest, not trying to, have it be part of the Scream Break lineup, especially since it is such a small event. But I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that perhaps we see a replacement for Vault 666 in the form of maybe an old retired Knott's maze.
I know where you're going. I know what you want them to bring over. And I'll tell you.
What do I want, Dustin?
You want Paranormal Inc.
Of course, man. Of course.
I know what you want, bro. And listen, hey, if for some reason they announce, could you imagine if they announced Paranormal as a maze? Like, that would be insane.
It'll be the first year that I become like a Fright Fest season pass holder, like just going all the time, honestly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that would be cool, man. I would even take the depths. If they ship the depths up there, I would be so happy with that for sure.
It's not too far-fetched either, though, because like Knott's has done this. Cedar Fair has done this, right? Like some old retired mazes from Knott's will make their way to over, other parks. So it's not totally out of the question. But man, if they follow through, that's just because I don't think we've had it happen other than maybe Great America. I don't know if they've ever got anything, but I don't know if another Southern California park has received a Knott's maze. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of crazy that it would retire from here and just move 2 hours north and you can just go and experience it again. Like that's interesting to me.
Sure. Absolutely. And I forgot to highlight it, but I did see a question earlier that I'll try to find right now. Sorry guys. I'm like searching through here we go. Ronnie Rod wants to know, is the hype low because of the distance to the event compared to the stuff in LA or Buena Park? Or is it just not as hyped as other events in general? I mean, Ronnie, that's a great question. Dustin, you just mentioned the drive. I mean, that's definitely a factor. I mean, I think for both of us, right? The fact that it's at minimum, I think, an hour and a half away.
Yeah, it's out there. There's not much else to do. I would say that Horror Nights is just in the middle of all of it, right? Like you're in Hollywood, you're in LA, whatever. Not, at least from my experience of working there, I remember seeing a lot of, like, for example, we'll see a lot of international guests.
Sure.
Because you can stay for 3 nights in Orange County and you can hit Disneyland, Knott's, Horror Nights, or whatever you want to do all right there. But then like once you get way out there, it's like there's nothing more to do. And I think it's really unfortunate because I had a great time and I thought the event didn't really lack anything that would make you go like, this isn't worth it. I truly feel like if they were an hour and a half closer, I think they'd be a pretty strong competitor. Like they'd be even more competitive than they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Nico, you bring up a great point here. The Entertainment Connection, it would definitely get those Scary Farm loyalists to visit another event if they brought old Scary Farm mazes to Six Flags. Absolutely, man. I would, I don't want to seem ungrateful or like I'm bagging on the event or anything, but, Fright Fest for the most part has had the same lineup for the past couple of seasons. Including now, right? They're kind of reusing Condemned House Party. They used it at Scream Break last year. Then it made an appearance at Fright Fest. Now it's back for Scream Break. That's kind of the way that they operate. I do think that if they added, last year they added 2 new mazes, which was awesome. I think if they continue with that energy, and then even if they threw in some Knott's mazes in the mix, I think it would change things up, man. It would shake things up for sure.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I think the only question becomes is like, where do you start pulling your talent from? Because right. I can't imagine the people that work out there, like they live out in that area, but you're talking, if you added 2 more mazes, that's another, 40, 50 talent, like minimum. I mean, it's that becomes a whole logistical nightmare too. So
yeah, absolutely. And then, next it's a 2.5 hour drive for me. Damn.
Yeah.
That's a drive. That's a hell of a drive, man.
Yeah. Hey, to be fair, in traffic, man, it was an hour to get to Knott's from where I was like last year. So
that's true. That's true. Fair point. Fair point. All right. We're going to come to the conclusion now. I think overall, Dustin, do you think the event is worth a visit?
Man, is it worth a visit? I'm going to say yeah. 100%. I think if you are a fan of Halloween, if you're a fan of spooky, right, you want to do all this, like Halloween March is insane, right? It's fun. And I think this event gives you, this event is definitely like an appetizer for Halloween events. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's not the main course, right? Like you're going to get a little taste of it, but it's a great time. You go out, you have a good time, have some drinks, have some food, hit the mazes. The talent was on it, man. Like I wasn't bored at all, except for when we walked 30 minutes past every other attraction. But that won't happen this year because you have Saw to kind of coast you back. But no, dude, I think it's definitely worth it. I thought the value to like the price of the tickets, the free parking. I thought everything was relatively well priced as well. Like, the food and everything. So I think from that standpoint as well, it's definitely worth a visit.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And honestly, I think my favorite thing about Scream Break my favorite thing about Scream Break is that it's not a mix-in event. It's a separate ticket event. So meaning they take out all of the general admission people and then it's just the Scream Break folks. And man, let me tell you, I'm really looking forward to the day that they do that for Fright Fest. Because good Lord, it gets so busy on those nights. Because also they have very limited nights for their Fright Fest run. So sometimes I'm finding myself being there on days where everybody else is there too. At Knott's, if you go on a Wednesday, if you go on a Thursday, if you go on a Sunday night, it's a little quieter. Things are a little smoother. But definitely the mixing crowds make it so rough to get out there to Fright Fest. So I'm really hoping that they follow this Scream Break format and make it a separate ticketed event. I'm not going to stop preaching this until they do it, man, because good Lord, I think it would change everything. I mean, Dustin, you can speak to the experience of being a performer on an incredibly busy night. Yeah. How does that change the vibe, dude?
Scaring on a busy night is insane. We had a couple sold out nights this past year at Knott's, and it's like you can't even move. You're just shoulder to shoulder with people, and you're finding ways to slide lines and things like that. It's crazy. It's so difficult, but it's so much fun. Everybody's eating, man. It's a feast out there.
Sure.
I could not imagine if half of that crowd wasn't there for that event and was just there generally, and you're like scaring them. Right. Like, so I've never been to Fright Fest during the regular, and that's going to change this year. Right. But like, I couldn't imagine having a mix-in event for a Halloween, so I'll preach it with you, man. I'll preach it with you. It has to be a separate ticketed event because it's even better. It's even better when everyone wants to be there.
Agreed, brother. Agreed. I hope it happens. Six Flags, come on, do it. Just do it. Walker Chronicles with a very interesting tidbit here. I think the new entertainment director, Mike Ostrom, did I say that right? I don't know. Sorry, Mike. Really understands what a haunt needs to be successful. As long as Six Flags gives them the funding, I think it will be a great event. Yeah, I agree. And especially last year, seeing what they did with their 2 IPs, which is a rarity, really, to get 2 big IPs at Fright Fest. Seeing what they did with those, I think there's great potential. All they need is just, a little bit more funding. And to my point, if you make it a separate ticketed event, let me tell you, bro, I'll pay $60, $70 to go out there and not be in the mix with everybody else, because outside of that, you're paying for a full ticket general admission, which I think is like $90 these days at Six Flags. So you're paying like $90 to get into the park. Then you're paying at least $20-something to get into the Fright Fest portion of it, to get your little Fright Fest wristband. Listen, bro. Listen, Six Flags. I appreciate what you do, but if I'm paying over $100 for your event, I'm out, dog. I'm out. I'm going to Knott's, bro.
Dude. Oh my god.
I'm sorry. Nexus Fuel, $40 for a very early taste of the fog is very worth it. Absolutely. And Dustin, you put it beautifully, man. It's such a good appetizer. It's not even just like, some plain fries. These are like Parmesan garlic fries, what I mean, with an aioli on the side or something, you know what I mean? Something you can dip it, something good. I don't know, man.
Go ahead, talk me through it, baby. Keep going.
So I agree with you 100%. I do believe it is worth a visit to Scream Break, especially if you're a fan of haunt events. And listen, what else you doing in March and April? Yeah. Come on. Go get some fog.
Go get some fog.
Go get some scares. See
That's
what
be
the
a
sliders
shirt
are
now.
up to. Go get some fog.
Go get some fog.
Well, any final thoughts, man? I think we're safe to wrap it up here.
Yeah, man. No, I'm excited, and hey, I'm excited for Friday. Can't wait.
I am too, man. It's gonna be a real fun time. And well, Dustin, where can people find you?
Oh God, don't find me. No, I'm kidding. I don't have a haunt stuff outside of haunt. I only do haunt things during Halloween time. So, but you can find me on Instagram at Dustin Does Film, because I do in fact do film, and I think that's gonna be my only place I post anything. You're gonna be really disappointed. You're gonna go there and see 3 pictures from haunt, and you're like, oh, that's sick. And then it's a picture of me with my cats, and you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. So unless it is, then follow away.
Then yeah, absolutely. Aiden, yep. Hopefully we'll see you out there. Hopefully we run into y'all. Hopefully, if you guys are out there on Friday and you want to say what's up, come see us. We'll be out there. It's gonna be a great time. We'll be there with Nico too. Nico's gonna roll by on Friday. It's gonna be a great time. We're going to get, hopefully this year, I want to try some snacks, man. I want to try some of the food they got, and definitely some of the drinks they got. Maybe I'll hit up that happy hour and see what that's about.
Come visit us 3 hours into the event.
I won't remember a damn thing. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Be sure and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at The Hauntline. You can also visit us on the web, thehauntline.com, to stay up to date with everything that we do. And until the next time, thank you for calling The Hauntline. Dustin, thanks for joining us, brother.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you out there.